Hello students, I am Tulika Banerjee. Today I bring you the next learning episode on behalf of the content writers Dr. G.S. Sodhi and Deepika Bhandari on an important unit of paper, Crime and Society, which is Social Change in Crime, in which we will discuss about crime and various prominent theories related to crime and criminals. We will also discuss about the crime trend in India along with the various methods for control of crime. We will wind up the module with a discussion on role of social change in committing crime. Let's start our module with a look at what we are going to learn today. First is introduction, then prominent theories including differential association theory, labeling theory, self-concept and containment theory, crime trend in India, control of crime, role of social change in committing crime, and lastly with the conclusion. The legal definition of crime is that it is a behavior or an activity in violation of the legal code. Paul Tappen has defined crime as an intentional act or omission in violation of criminal law committed without defense or justification and sanctioned by the state for punishment as a felony or a misdemeanor. Crime has also been defined in social or non-legal terms. The social definition of crime is that it is behavior or an activity that offends the social code of a particular community. Maurer has defined it as an anti-social act. Caldwell has explained it as an act or a failure to act that is considered to be so detrimental to the well-being of a society as judged by its prevailing standards that action against it cannot be entrusted to private initiative or to haphazard methods, but must be taken by an organized society in accordance with the tested procedures. Differential association theory. Sutherland proposed differential association theory in the year 1939 and elaborated it in the year 1947. Initially, he applied his theory only to systematic criminal behavior, but later on, extending his theory, he applied it to all criminal behavior. Sutherland forwarded mainly two explanations for criminal behavior, that is, situational and genetic or historical. The former explains crime on the basis of situation that exists at the time of crime, and the latter explains crime on the basis of a criminal's life experiences. For example, if a hungry boy comes across a restaurant and finds the owner absent, he steals a roti. In this case, the boy steals not because the restaurant owner was absent and he himself was hungry, but because he had learnt earlier that one could satisfy one's hunger by stealing things. Thus, it is not the situation which motivates a person to commit a crime or commit a theft, it is his learnt attitudes and beliefs. This theory presented 9 propositions, that is, criminal behavior is learnt. It is learnt in interaction with other persons in a process of communication. The principal part of the learning process occurs within intimate, small personal groups. The learning includes techniques of committing crime and a specific direction of motives, drives, rationalizations and attitudes. The specific direction is learned from definitions of legal codes as favorable or unfavorable. A person becomes a criminal or a delinquent because of an excess of definitions favorable to violation of law over definitions unfavorable to violation of law. Differential associations may vary in frequency, duration, priority and intensity. The processes of learning criminal behavior by association with criminal and non-criminal patterns are fundamentally the same in form as the process which result in lawful behavior. While criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it is not explained by these general needs and values, since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. The next theory is the labeling theory. Stigmatizing people causes crime. Howard Baker propounded his labeling theory in 1963. Becker's theory does not deal with the question why a person becomes a criminal, but tells why society labels some people as criminals or deviants. According to this theory, what is important is the study of deviance in the social audience, not the individual person. What is important in crime is not the act of the individual, but the reaction of the society in terms of rules and sanctions. According to labeling theory, once a person begins to be stigmatized with a particular label such as criminal, he tends to internalize the label. Internalization means the label becomes a part of the individual's identity of a person. This will bring negative self-concept and also increases chance of that individual to prove the label in future. The third theory is the self-concept and the containment theory. Walter Reckless, the propounder of this theory, has said that the important question that must be in explaining criminal behavior is why, given the alternatives of law-abiding and law-violating behavior, do some people turn to one of the other behavior. He suggests that self-concept is the key factor in explaining the choice among alternative of behavior. A favorable self-concept directs him towards law-abiding behavior and an unfavorable self-concept directs him towards delinquent behavior. Reckless has further said that there are two important aspects of control, that is inner control and outer control, and that depending upon the balance of these control systems, the individual can take either a deviant or a conformist route. His assumption is that the strong inner and reinforcing outer containment constitutes isolation against normative deviancy, that violation of the socio-legal conduct norms. A good self-concept is evidence of favorable socialization and the development of a strong inner self, self-control, well-developed superego, high frustration, tolerance to diversion, ability to find substitute satisfaction, tension reducing, rationalization, etc., which directs a person towards middle class values. Poor self-concept is indicative of unfavorable socialization and weak inner direction, which in turn does not deflect the boy from bad companies and street corner society, does not enable him to embrace middle class values, and gives him an awareness of being cut off from upward movement in the legitimate opportunity system. In India, crime exists in various forms. The trend in crime can be seen on your screen. These statistics show the crime rate till 2015. It can be seen that the crime against women has increased from 2012 to 2015. Due to digitization, in modern days, crime related to digital media, that is cybercrime, has been increasing at an alarming rate. The rate of violent crimes has comparatively decreased as compared to cybercrime. From frauds to terrorism, everything is related to cybercrime these days, which can be clearly depicted as shown on your screen. The identification and evaluation of crime risk and introduction of an action to prevent or lessen its effect is known as crime prevention. It includes efforts for creating public awareness and various measures to prevent crime. It is the concept of self-defense in which police and public come together to prevent commission of a crime. Various crime prevention programs have been initiated to reduce crime and to create public awareness against any crime and its prevention. It is always much better to prevent crime rather than dealing with victims and committers of a crime. Prevention of crime is not an individual's business, but it is a combined effort of complete society. In India, Crime Prevention Council of India was set up similar to a previously formed organization, that is Aparadh Nirodhak Samiti, formed in the year 1938. The main purpose of this council is to identify crimes and create an atmosphere to bring change in criminal tendency of individual to an extent that they start hating crime. Various seminars and meetings are conducted to create awareness and to make society free from crimes. There are various factors which lead to commission of crime. such as the person or group must have the motivation to commit any act against law. At least few offenders should have the potential and skills required to commit a crime. The offenders must get an opportunity to commit crime. There are basically 4 types of prevention. First is primary prevention. It deals with individual and family level factors which lead to criminal tendencies. Attachment with school and involving in children pro-social activities decrease the chances of criminal tendency. If we discuss about family level factors, then it will include effective parenting skills while directly leading to reduction in criminal behavior. Second is the secondary prevention. In this, main focus is on youth who drops out of a school and get involved in criminal activities. Various social programs and law enforcement plans are made and executed in areas where crime rate is high. Proper counseling programs from youth have helped in reduction of crime rate. The third type of prevention is the tertiary prevention. This type of prevention is used after occurrence of a crime and focuses on prevention of further incidents of crime. And the fourth one is situation crime prevention. This type of prevention focuses on ways to reduce the opportunity to commit a crime. These ways include increase in difficulty of crime, the risk factors and reward after crime commission. There are several causes for crimes in the society. Out of them, social causes occupy the primary position. It is true that the criminal is not born but is made up by the social and environmental factors. There are several factors causing criminal behavior and enhancing the crime rates year by year. Some of the important social causes of crime have been explained over here in this lecture. First, if we are talking about family and crime, it is well said that the family is the first greatest training school in either behavior or misbehavior. The family is the root cause for several offences in the society. Broken home converts the children into delinquents and housewives into prostitutes and other criminals. Next is about the child abuse. It is observed that due to dispute in the family, children become juvenile delinquents. In 1962, American criminologists researched on child abuse. On analyzing 71 hospitals in that year, they found 400 children abuse cases. Out of them, 44 children, that is around 11%, died and 112 of them, that is 28%, were affected with brain damage. This shows the alarming position of the parents' ill behavior on their children in America. The same situation is being continued in entire world without any exception. The parents quarrel with each other and show their anger on children. The children become victim for the angriness of their elders. Broken houses, family disputes convert child into delinquents and cause truancy. Some of poor parents send their children to work in homes of rich people. Sometimes such rich people harass the poor children on smallest causes. They pay very meager salary to them. They do not provide proper food, clothes and shelter. Some of the industrialists employ children in their industries and factories at lowest rates of wages. These children are barely exploited physically and economically. Next is spouse abuse. The women are praised only in words, but they are ill-treated from the ancient period up to this modern age throughout the world. The criminologists found that husbands assault their wives very cruelly. Men often use their fists on their wives. In America, husbands use revolvers and knives. Majority of the husbands in the world use violence against their wives. Assaulting, namely kicking, punching, stabbing, burning, choking, etc. on wives is common throughout the globe. In majority occasions, wives do not report to police. Only in extraordinary circumstances, they speak out and report to police. In India, reporting to police against husband leads into divorce or separation. Some of the husbands drink very heavily and incur their salary completely and go to their homes with empty pockets. The wives work as tailoring, maids, etc. and thus earn little amount to feed their children. The drunkard husbands torture their wives to squeeze their meager amount or income too. Some of the sadistic and sexually perverted husbands torture their wives physically and mentally. They burn the body of women with lighting cigars. Some of the husbands do not provide any food, clothes, etc. Some of the husbands do not trust their wives and they are always suspicious on their chastity. Even though they do debauchery, they want their wives in chastity. It is a crime according to the penal laws where a husband forcibly does sex with his wife without her consent. However, generally no wife dares to complain against her husband on the sadistic and sexual perversion. But in America, wives immediately report to the police. In India, the greedy husbands squeeze and tease their wives demanding to bring dowry, additional dowry from their parents' houses. If the wives do not consent or fail in bringing money from their parents' houses, the husbands become more atrocious and seriously attack their wives and sometimes brutally kill them. The disputes between the wife and husband greatly affect their children. Children are psychologically depressed. They start delinquency, truancy, cigarette smoking, small thefts, telling lies, going to pictures in the school times, etc. Gradually, they become juvenile delinquents. In the rare circumstances, husbands too suffer in the hands of their wives, but their number is very less. Generally, wives' atrocities on husbands remain unreported due to the fear of humiliation in the society. However, this also greatly influences the brain of their children. The third factor over here is the incest. It means sexual intercourse within the prohibited degrees of relationship. There are incidents covered in newspapers that a sexually perverted father raped his own daughter and made her pregnant, or brother raped his sister and made her pregnant, etc. This type of sexual relations between the prohibited degrees is called as incestuous relations. The women are physically and financially weak, and thus they are unable to resist the sexual torture against them. The fourth factor is the financial control. Majority of the families in the world are male dominated. Financial control lies in the hands of male only. Females are dependent on males, that is, first on their father, later on their husband, and lastly on their son. This weakens the position of women and thus they become the targets of harassment and torture done to them physically and psychologically. The fifth factor is homicide in family. In an aggressive moment, husband kills his wife. Police arrests him. No relative looks after their children. Their children come to the streets. First they start begging, later they start small criminal acts. Gradually they become gang leaders. The next factor here are about the large families. Some of the parents do not adopt family planning operation. They continue to procreate child after child. The number of children goes to 10 or 1 dozen. The father becomes weak to earn money sufficient to feed his family. The grown-up children seek the ways of earning money. They gradually incline towards delinquency. Negligence of parents. In some of the families, both the parents happen to be employees. They cannot concentrate on their children. In the absence of their watching, their children are attracted to bad friends and are habituated to vices such as truancy, that is absconding from school, cigarette smoking, debauching, gambling, etc. Next is about delinquency and truancy. Truancy means absconding from school. The children learn things which are good or bad from their family. When the parents start quarreling, the child loses his concentration on education, mental peace, etc. He becomes mentally disturbed. The abuser's ill behavior of his father or mother are reviewed every time in his mind. To escape from such mental conditions, he starts truancy, that is absconding from school. Automatically, truancy leads into bad friend alliance. With their company, the child learns bad habits such as cigarette smoking, narcotic drugs, cinema viewing, debauching, lies, breaking of promises, starting theft first in his own house, later in other houses, etc. Next, we will be talking about dowry debts.